What's up guys, Jackal here with another Breaking the Build. This time the build is the Spin and Sprinkle Hierophant. This is a build that's based on having Calm's Heart as your chess piece, as I got this item dropped, it dropped for a buddy, so I got it early on in the league. And also 2 lead sprinklers dropped for me early in the league, and I decided this looks like a build. So basically the lead sprinkler, Brutus's lead sprinkler, is an item that, very much like Hand of Wisdom and Action, as we've seen for the past 2 leagues, is very popular. Brutus's lead sprinkler has been updated to be very similar, where every 10 strength you get 2 to 4 flat fire damage on your attacks, which, when it stacks up, can be very powerful, especially when you're dual wielding this item. So the whole idea of the build is to stack up as much strength and therefore fire damage as you can, and Cyclone to victory. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other items. We've already mentioned that we're using Calm's Heart, as well as 2 Brutus's lead sprinklers. The other uniques of note are Doriani's Invitation, Gang's Momentum, as well as Meginord's Vice. Meginord's Vice is of specific importance because it's one of the best ways to stack strength. This is something that people who have used Mjolnir builds before might remember. And it's been slightly upgraded to also give you nice life regeneration if you have at least 400 strength. I believe that's a new update to the item. Doriani's Invitation gives you very nice resistances, some nice fire damage leached as life, and we can always use life leech in a life build, as well as your flasks granting you a chance to ignite. As with most builds, you're basically spamming flasks, so this gives you quite a lot more ignites, which is really nice for finishing off guys that you've already moved past but didn't quite kill because you only hit them once or something like that. As far as the Gang's Momentum, very nice fire resistance, very nice movement speed, not max, but nice, and movement speed is important for Cyclone, as well as also a high chance to ignite, and extra damage against ignited enemies. This can be very nice against single target bosses, because you ignite them rather quickly, and then for the rest of the fight you do a lot more damage to them. The rest of my gear is basically just normal armor gear with as much life and resistance as I could get, as well as rings and amulets being able to get either flat fire or percentage elemental damage or percentage fire damage. All of those are quite good. Any combination of them is quite great. As far as my flasks, this build is very low on chaos resistance and it's a life build, so I got a amethyst flask, and as a bit of extra defense, a granite flask. On top of the quicksilver flask, my other 2 flasks are are both life flasks. One to remove bleeding and one also to increase my armor, so it counts as an extra defensive mechanic. Let's take a look at the skill tree. As you can see, I am a Hierophant. This is because my Calm's Heart makes it so that in a dual wielding build I cannot have a true 5-link or 6-link. So I take Illuminated Devotion to get pseudo 5-links in my helmet, gloves, and boots. With the rest of the Ascendancy points, as you can see, I don't have the Uberlab done, but I'm only just hit level 80, so I'm sure I'll get that done soon. With the other 4 Ascendancy points, I'm taking Divine Guidance because this is a mind over matter build, and I then continue to travel to Sanctuary of Thought, which also helps with the mana and gives me some very nice free energy shield. With the rest of the skill tree, I of course went up to mind over matter quite quickly. That is the basis of the defenses for this build. The uniques I'm using not only mean that I don't have very high armor on my gear, but also that I don't have very high resistances. So I had to make up a lot of defenses on the skill tree. Being a lead sprinkler build means I get, of course, fire damage from any strength nodes that I pick up. So that justifies quite a lot of traveling on the skill tree as long as you're traveling through mostly strength nodes. So, mind over matter as a core part of our defenses. I picked up a lot of the strength nodes that also added some damage, either elemental damage or, in the case of retribution, attack speed and melee damage, which doesn't specify physical melee, so that works with your fire damage. And then I traveled down through all the strength nodes I could to get life in the Marauder tree through Heart of the Warrior, also up here in Constitution. And I picked up extra armor and movement speed, as well as life regeneration through Armor Mastery. And because I wasn't Elemental Weakness capped yet, I got Diamond Skin and 2 of the nodes behind it. In the Duelist tree, Battle Rouse is quite important, because this, as well as 2 of your jewels being... Oh, that's not one of them. Here we go. 2 of your jewels being Spirited Response while you're using the Rallying Cry, means that quite a lot of the damage you take comes back to you in the form of mana. So while 40% of your damage is taken as mana or from mana before life, also with 2 Spirited Responses, one over there and one over here, as well as Battle Rouse, you take 23% of the damage gained as mana when hit, which basically makes it so you never run out of mana, so you can keep your mind over matter defenses up all the time. So, as a little bit of damage in the tree, I don't take much damage in the tree, but Lava Lash seemed rather important for extra penetration, as well as fire damage with weapons. All of our damage is coming from fire damage with weapons, so that is a huge node. And of course, it's all strength nodes leading up to it, which are all damaged themselves. And then I took the great defenses in the Duelist. And that's the entire tree. I'm still shopping for a jewel to fill out that last socket. So let's talk about a little bit of the ups and downs for the build. It's an incredibly fun build because Cyclone, this is my first Cyclone build that I've really played through the end game with, and I find Cyclone a very satisfying skill, as it is in all ARPGs it has been in since Diablo 2. Basically, you keep your momentum. When you're killing everything in a large AoE while you're moving, you keep your momentum, and it makes map clearing very fun and efficient. Some of the problems I have with it is that even with all the AoE I get from the Hierophant tree, it still doesn't seem large enough to me, and so without the increased AoE gem, I do miss some guys. There is a lot of stragglers. I find if I ever backtrack through a map, I find that I've missed a lot of stragglers, and so you never kill a boss and then hit your tab button, open the map, and see 0 monsters remain, because there's always some stragglers you missed with this build, unless you really want to backtrack and get them, but it's not worth it. So that is a problem. Maybe it could just be fixed by putting an increased AoE gem in as well, since the damage is quite fine. You could probably sacrifice a damage gem, maybe faster attacks, or I'm not sure which one you would take out for it, but maybe this problem could be solved with an increased AoE gem, but I feel like it's not needed because the clear speed is still very high, and you don't miss that much. As far as any other problems, I don't find that the build has a lot of defensive problems, but it doesn't run very many defensive mechanics. It's basically just completely dependent on your flasks and your mind over matter. Your base armor isn't very high, as I mentioned before, and you don't really run a defensive, or at least I don't run a defensive cast when damage taken. I put my Golem and my Curse on the cast when damage taken because I'm lazy. So maybe a defensive cast when damage taken could allow this build to push up a little bit higher into the tiers of maps without dying. I'm not sure because I'm not there yet. Overall, great build, very fun. I'm loving Cyclone, and I think that if you're playing Cyclone for the first time, a Brutus's Lead Sprinkler build is a very good choice. It's a kind of like a poor man's Hand of Wisdom in action, but in many ways I like this item better, and it's very easy to find, very cheap. All the gear beside the Calm's Heart is cheap, and you don't need the comms heart. I just happened to get one from a friend, and not having one would allow you to also 5 or 6 link your primary attack. In my opinion, the single target could be higher. Perhaps if you could 6 link on a chess piece or something like that, you would choose to do it with the single target rather than the AoE, so you could get those bosses down a lot faster. Overall, great build. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.